So, honestly, Shigaraki is one of the most interesting characters when it comes to power leveling and his strength especially. He's the type of character that is quite different from Deku but also similar to him. If you look at his character from the beginning, you would see that he actually didn't have any specific strength or speed to him. He only had his Decay quirk. So how strong is Shigaraki really is? We're gonna start from season 1 till where he actually came over the years till the end of the manga. Now don't worry, I know season 7 is premiering currently, so I will give a spoiler warning when we reach the final episode. Without further ado, let's get off. When it comes to Shigaraki, it's actually pretty interesting. His strength or his speed wasn't really that super or superhuman. He was basically a normal guy with a decay quirk, and he could basically like decay a human, some steel blades, pretty normal stuff, not something very enhanced. We could see that from the USJ attack, where he basically decayed Razorhead's elbow. We then move on to season 2, where he basically decayed Stain's steel blades, which is actually pretty impressive. But then we do a little bit of a jump, because there wasn't actually like a lot of feats that we saw Shigaraki do till at least like season 4, where we saw him basically decaying the hands of Overhaul. So his pretty much strength of decay was basically being able to decay humans, decay objects, but not on a superhuman level. I would even argue that if Deku and Shigaraki actually fought, even with Deku lacking combat strength, if Deku was fighting from a long distance, he would have the upper hand because of his one-for-all strength, while if they fought in closer combat, Shigaraki would have the upper hand because he's just more experienced in combat and basically in stealth in general. Now, when it comes to season 5, where we basically saw Shigaraki fighting Gigantomachia and basically fighting Redestro, we see a kind of like a shift of power dynamics that we have never seen before from Shigaraki. Almost all of his life basically being used to his decay quirk, and then him having to take this decay quirk on a superhuman level. Like, he basically decayed an entire group of humans, and his decay was basically all connected together, stronger than before. And then we see him kind of like decaying a whole kind of like city block. So that was pretty interesting. Now, I would say that if we're gonna go season by season, I think Shigaraki, in terms of decay, his decay was like, I would say like a building or a house at max when we started, and then he kind of like built his way when he fought Gigantomachia and he fought Redestro. His decay was basically kind of like a Camino level. I would say like it's similar to how when All Might and All For One have fought, and I'm only speaking in terms of decay. I'm not speaking in terms of strength. I'm not speaking in terms of speed. We will get through that, but I'm just going through one by one. When Shigaraki was actually in the lab and he was getting tested on, he was having this amazing strength getting passed down to him by his mentor, All For One, and he was there for 3 months. His strength have increased exponentially. I would say that we're in season 6, I would say, when he got out of, the lab, he was like at 75%. He got out, he's still not fully 100% ready. He still have the superhuman strength, he have the quirks, but in terms of human strength or strength and speed alone, I would say he is, like almost as strong as past Prime All Might. Like All Might at the start of the series, like season 1, he's almost as strong as him, and not exactly as strong as him, because you see like his speed and him being able to kind of like bypass Endeavor, but at the same time Endeavor is kind of like keeping up with him. But then we see something interesting, because when he fights Deku, them basically like going with their attacks, fighting Deku at that time, he was basically, I would say, to a degree, he's at city level with that type of like at the 75% range. Now, where we take that to the next level, after he fought Deku and he basically retreated, he was like really injured as well because his body wasn't really fully healed and fully ready to fight. He is at city level at this point. Now, it's really interesting. We get to see Shigaraki again, but this time after he completed basically operation or surgery, and we get to see him fighting Star and Stripes, basically the #1 hero in the US. Now, Star and Stripe isn't exactly as strong as Prime All Might, but I would say she is as strong as past Prime All Might. I feel like that's a really perfect way to put her or to place her in terms of like power leveling in terms of My Hero Academia. She is stronger than Endeavor. She is not stronger than Prime All Might or All For One. She is kind of like on the range of post Prime All Might, kind of like when we start off the season with him being able to like do a Detroit smash, making tornadoes and everything. Now, what's really interesting is Shigaraki manages to defeat her by basically outsmarting her. Technically, if they were to fight in terms of like strength alone, I would say Star and Stripe would actually manage to beat him. And I'm just saying strength alone. I'm not saying in terms of like he has a regeneration quirk, because if he didn't have that, obviously she would have defeated him, because we saw the missiles, we saw what she did. She basically can't defeat him without the quirks, but because of the quirks and enhanced quirks, that basically makes him able to surpass her. Now, technically, I honestly didn't like the way that Star and Stripe was handled, I guess. I kind of wish if she had stuck around and not just basically died after she got introduced, like 5-6 chapters in, because she was an interesting character, similar to All Might, a similar physical build, and she was an interesting character in all seriousness. After we saw that, we move on to where we are, I would say, like with the war arc, technically. See Shigaraki entering the stadium after they basically, everyone got like separated to different places. We see Shigaraki going inside the UA stadium prison that they have made for him, and the scale, and if we're talking like in terms of scale, it's basically like a small type of city. If you want to go a bit further, it's similar to the cities they were making, like the fake cities for the UA students when they were fighting the teachers in season 2. For example, like when All Might fought Deku and Bakugo, like that's how big the city is. They kind of like held Shigaraki in, and we see him kind of like overpowering technically everyone in terms of like strength. Right now, he's like basically almost a god. He's like as strong as Prime All for One, but actually a lot more stronger. Not just because of like Shigaraki's body is special, that's not just the case. It's also because Shigaraki's body is only like 21 years old. He's still in his prime technically, or he's reaching his prime in terms of age, but All for One's body, or All for One's prime body, was beyond 100% even when he fought All Might. He was still in his prime technically because of all the quirks, but if we're talking just like age alone, he's technically heading towards his prime. At this point, I would say that Shigaraki was actually country level. Now, the reason why I'm saying that, and I will have to dive into spoiler for this point, so please proceed with caution, is basically like his decay alone, he can decay Japan in like 7 days. That was stated in the manga. That's like how we know, just like from his quirk alone. And technically he wasn't able, I feel like that was also like a downside of the manga itself. He wasn't able to unleash all of his quirks when he was fighting Deku, because they basically like imprisoned him in this prison, so he couldn't technically go all out. So that was kind of like a letdown, I would say. But at the same time, if we're talking like strength alone, he's currently like where he's at. He's going like country level, based on his quirks, based on his strength, and based on everything combined together. Because we see like during his battle with Deku, the way that Deku was basically lifting chunks of land, they were basically destroying mountains with ease. He could definitely level up a country at this point with his strength. He could enhance his quirks, he could make huge chunks of skin and meat, and basically enhances his punches, make them having large portions of attack. So that's also interesting if we're gonna go by the end. That's basically where he's at, like where he's at his peak when they were fighting at the end before Deku started giving up one for all. That's basically where we see Shigaraki. He already passed Prime All for One at this point, because he have like a strong regeneration quirk, he have multiple quirks, he has All for One, he has the Decay quirk, he has strength enhanced quirks, he has like multiple enhancing strength and speed quirks. That's also like interesting to see. So in terms of where we're gonna place him at like the power leveling charts, I would say Prime All Might, honestly, and I'm gonna be really honest, a lot of people might disagree with me on this, but Prime All Might is still #1 for me. Why, you might ask? Basically, no one in My Hero Academia, and I mean no one, no character ever, we have never seen that by the way, has ever come close to All Might's speed or strength ever. Like, we have never seen any feats like that. Let me give you, basically refresh your memory. He traveled to Osaka and beated a dozen villains in 3 seconds. That was shown in the My Hero Academia Vigilantes manga. You can check it out. It's a canon manga. So that's first. He was able to lift 50,000 people with the whole huge stadium with it, with ease, punch it, and then save all those people in a couple of seconds. In terms of power level, I feel like Prime All Might is definitely #1. At #2, I would place Shigaraki All for One, if we're gonna be like more, I guess, special about it. At #3, I would place Deku, just because he hasn't shown enough strength and feats to actually defeat Shigaraki. He wasn't actually able to defeat Shigaraki because he was still trying to save him. Maybe if he was trying to kill him like before we have reached the end. Maybe he could have. I don't think he's stronger than Shigaraki. At number 4, that's where I'll place like Primal for 1, and then so on. That's honestly my final thoughts on Shigaraki. Let me know if you have any different thoughts, or if you disagree with any of my thinking. I would love to hear what you guys think. I have been the Manga Viewer, and I'll see you all next time. Matsane!